Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing about AWS RDS. So what exactly is AWS RDS? And we are particularly going to discuss about MySQL. So RDS is a relational database service managed by AWS. So essentially what it means is, so what do we mean by managed? Managed is that see, when we install a normal database software on a server, so we first need to provision a server, then we need to apply some patches on the server, then we need to create mount points, and then download the database software as well. Maybe we need to create partitions, we need to define certain things, then we need to install the database software and all. So it's like whole lot of work, right? When we do it manually, we need to take care of the mount points, archive logs, and many things, right? So but what happens with RDS, all these things get automated. Yeah, so you just go to the console and with some few simple clicks you can actually create a database, and it is a managed services. So like it is mentioned in front of me, it's a managed services. It's so the AWS side is responsible for most of the management tasks. So the installation of database, OS installation, provisioning, maintenance, like if you have to deploy any database software patches, OS patches, the server maintenance if server needs to be rebooted, or there is a problem with the server, or if you need to create a highly available database, scaling of the database, all these tasks are taken care by Amazon RDS. You don't need to manually go and install, do OS installation, patching, and all the things. You just need to do it and define things. Even the backups are scheduled using the AWS console itself. You can create a read replica by creating a database and right click create a read replica. So you can create multiple read replicas of a main replica. Okay, so you see, and you don't need to manage the mount points. You don't get access to the OS, so you can only access through the MySQL console if you have to do a certain task on the database side. Yeah, so this is how the RDS service is designed. And what it supports, which database it supports for now? It supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, MariaDB, and SQL Server. Okay, now for RDS MySQL, there is a single instance setup where you can define a single instance and work on it, and there is a primary and a replica kind of setup. Okay, so the advantage is that the primary is always available and the replica is a read replica. So if you look at this diagram, I have users that could be in servers or app servers, and that is accessing my primary server, and the primary is also getting replicated to the read replica. Okay, so in this way you have a read replica also, so the users can query the reader endpoint to check the to access the read replica. So you have a writer endpoint and you have a reader endpoint, and you can access the read replica. Yeah, so this is the way how the read replica RDS MySQL with read replica works. Then we have another topology. So in this case also, if you want to do a failover or anytime, you can do a failover as well. If you want to, if there is a problem with the primary, you can always failover to a read replica. However, it might require some downtime, right? Because you have to shut down everything and then failover to a read replica. So to avoid this, we also have something called as multi-AZ. So in this way, I have a multi-AZ configuration. So how it differs from the read replica is, you have a primary server, that where is my primary database server, right? Then I have a read replica. So my read replica is the server that is accessible for reads. I can always go and access it for the reading purpose. I cannot write to it. And then I have another standby server. The standby server is a multi-AZ replica. It's in a different availability zone, and it is always synchronized with the primary. However, it is not a readable one. Okay, so what happens? So what is the advantage I get here? So the advantage I get here is, if I have to do it is in a different availability zone within AWS. So if I have to shut down my this primary, my multi-AZ can quickly come up. Okay, so like if I have to do some patching, or if I have to bring my database down for any activity due to any reasons, I always have a multi-AZ replica where the downtime is really less. It really comes up very quickly. Yeah, so you always have a database that acts like a standby, and it's in a multi-agent, multi-availability zone configuration. Yeah. So the next is now what are the DB engines supported, like we discussed. So we have MariaDB, then we have SQL Server, we have MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL. So each of the DB engine has a set of parameters in a DB parameter group that control the behavior of the databases that it manages. So like when we install MySQL on a normal EC2 server, we have my.cnf file, right? So we have to manually go and edit those files on the OS side. However, like I mentioned, in this case we don't have access to the OS. Okay, we only get access to the MySQL prompt, and OS and everything is managed by Amazon itself. So how do we make those changes? So to make those changes, we have on the AWS console we have a parameter group where we can define the parameters. Okay, and we can change those parameters the way we do it in the normal MySQL server. So that's how the parameter group are defined. We will see those when we do some practical. Yeah. Now next is what is a DB instance class. Now I will just come out of the PPT. So let's just take a quick look. Now this is my database console. This is the databases. Okay, now if I have to create a database, I will go here and I will click on MySQL. Now what happens is I need to go for a, now when I define a database, I need to specify what kind of server I need to use. Okay, now of course now we have different kind of setups. We have a dev setup, test, QA, UAT, and then we have production. So we don't really want to have all higher configuration in lower environments, right? Because of the budgeting and some of the other constraints, right? Why do we need such a heavy hardware on the lower environments? So based on my requirements, I can actually choose different type of servers. Yeah. So in this way, when you create a RDS server, you get all these three kind of servers classes to configure your servers. The first is standard class. This is called as including M classes. So how it starts is you have servers that starts from m5.large, which will have 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM. Okay, so this is how your server starts, and as you go high, you can have a 4 CPU server which will have a 16 GB RAM, and this is the network speed. So as you go further, you will have 8 CPU and you will have 32 GB RAM. But what if I want a server with 4 CPU or 32 GB RAM? What if I want a server where I need more memory? Okay, I want less CPU, but I want more memory. For that, I can go into a memory optimized classes. Okay, so now here you look at it. I have 2 vCPUs and 16 GB RAM. Then I have 4 vCPUs and 30 GB RAM, 32 GB RAM. So you're getting the difference, right? Here in less CPUs, I'm getting more RAM. So if I have a server, right, where I need more memory, like a databases and all, so I think this is the one of the places I can look at. So as we go high, we can see we can actually get as much number of CPUs and RAM as we require. Okay, so you got the difference, right? In standard class, if you look at it, I have 2 vCPU and 8 GB RAM is the minimum one. But if I want more memory, I will go 2 vCPU and 16 GB RAM. So these are called memory optimized classes. So the standard classes are also nice. It depends on your workload requirements. You can go for this, and so you have different type of instances that are there, and you get different kind of network speed as well. Like here you get less flexible speeds, but as you go and add more memory and capacity, you get more kind of network throughput here. Yeah. So there are things you need to consider when you design your server. Okay. And the next category is the burst-able classes. Yeah. So the next is burst-able classes. So burst-able classes is these instances, they can actually they gather CPU credits, and at certain point of time when when you have a workload that is not very highly intensive, that is not using very high level CPU, like we have lower environments, right? We have dev environments, test environment, where we don't really see the workload always touching 100% and all. So I think for those kind of instances, this is a good kind of instance. I mean, you can use these kind of instances into setup, because what happens is because the instance will burst. It would require more CPU only for certain level of times, right? When you are doing some testing and all, and at other times you will not require the instance to use the entire CPU. So at that time you have the burst value, right? You have the CPU credits that can be used for bursting, for the instance to go high, and use that CPU utilization, that burstable limit. So that is what is called as burstable limit. It has CPU credits, and those credits can be used, to for use the excess CPU. Okay, so these are also good choices. So this is the three kind of instance configuration that we have. Okay, so one thing is, when you design an instance, you need a DB engine, then you need an instance, what kind of instance you are going to use, right? So we discussed about these three instances: standard, memory, and burstable. The next is instance storage. Now obviously when you have a server, right, so some of your servers, like, they can be really high IO, some can be lower, environments can be less IO also, right? You don't need all the highly expensive kind of storage and all kind of databases, correct? So you have three kind of storage that is given by Amazon to you for RDS. One is general purpose, okay, SSD, which is called GP2. Okay, the next is provisioned IOPS, where you can actually, it's IO1, IO2, where you can actually provision you can define what is the kind of IO you need actually from your side. And the third is magnetic, which is a traditional one. It is support for a backward compatibility. Yeah, so I'm discussing some of the basics before we actually create an instance, so that we know, and we will also come to these concepts when we create the instance here. So what is a general purpose this SSD? So this is a cost-effective storage that is acceptable for most databases. Okay, so it has a baseline performance of 3 IOPS for each GB, which means that 100 GB, if you allocate 100 GB of storage, so then you can get 300 IOPS per second. Yeah, so like if you have a lower environment where you just need 100 GB, where you just need to do some testing and all, then if you provision a GP2 storage, so it is there that you can get a baseline performance of 300 IOPS, so which is pretty much okay for your lower environments, or where you don't have very high IO kind of workload, where the instances are not really always using very high IO, or which are where you're not really using the disk too much. And as you go higher, right, so the higher volumes will have more IO. So as you go for a higher range, like 1 TB of hard disk, you will get more performance. Like if you have 1000 GB, 1 TB of this GP2 volume, then you will get 3000 IOPS, which is actually a very good limit, right? But yeah, everything comes with a cost also, because you're using 1000 GB and 1 TB, you're getting more IO. So you can, but so the baseline goes up to 3000, and the maximum baseline is 16,000 IOPS. Okay, so the instance IO credit baseline balance determines burst performance. Yeah. So as like I said that you have those instance credits that are actually stored in the server as when it is idle, so those depends the burst performance. Now next is provisioned IOPS. So let's just look at this as well. Now I am on the EC2 RDS console. So we covered this instance configuration. Next we will look at the storage one. So this is where we get option for this. So I will look for GP2, so I can have 20 GB. Yeah, and I can also enable the enable storage auto scaling, and define how much should my storage expand. So this is GP2. Next is IO1. So IO1 is the allocated storage. Like I mentioned, you can specify what is the amount of IOPS you need. Okay, so I can specify this as 4000 IOPS as well. Specify as 4000 IOPS, and I can specify it as what, 2000 GB. Okay, so I can say that I want 2 TB of storage, and I want 4000 IOPS. So it depends on like what kind of IOPS you want, how much your database is working. But IO1 and IO2 are for the workloads where you have really high volume, very highly intensive, and these are actually so the thing is, again you have this magnetic. So magnetic, like I said, is for backward compatibility. Yeah, so you get this IO1 and GP2. Okay, one thing is, if I go for a dev test, there also I will get this the IO1 and magnetic. Yeah, so what is provisioned IOPS? Designed to meet the need of IO intensive workloads, so particularly where workloads which require low IO latency and consistent IO throughput. So this is designed for very high intensive databases and all, which you actually need very high IO, and we need very less latency. And magnetic is used for backward compatibility. So this is a little bit about basics on how the RDS says, like what are the instances, so instance types, and what is the read replica, and what is what are the IOs, what are the different types of hard disks that are available. Now let's go to the practical now. So how to create this databases? Now we will go to the RDS service. And now if I want, I will just go here and click on services, and I will click on RDS. So now I'm on RDS, and here it should not take so much time here. So I'm on the databases. So I will go for a create database, and now I will go for a standard create or easy create. So I will go for a standard create to go through all the processes. So we can go for Aurora, we can create MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server. So I worked on Aurora as well, and I will cover it in one of the sessions. For now we'll look at MySQL. So I clicked on MySQL, and the edition is I will take for 8.2.0.6. okay. So I can choose any version that I want based on my testing and my application requirements. Yeah. And the next is production dev test free tier. We'll go for a dev test now for the demo. Okay, if I go for a free tier, then I won't get all the other options, so I will just go for a dev test now. So I will create a, so now like I mentioned, you have a multi-AZ DB instance where where is a primary DB instance, a standby instance in a different availability zone, provides high availability and data redundancy, but the standby doesn't support connections for read workloads. So like I mentioned, you have a primary database and a standby database, and it provides high availability and data redundancy, but you cannot access that database. Okay, so we'll just click for single DB instance now. We'll not create a multi set for this demo. So I will create this as database 1. Username is admin. I will create a password. Okay, so I've created a password. Now next is what is the instance configuration I need. So I will go for a burst table instance class. Like I mentioned, these are very small instances, so I will just take a small one here for the demo, but based on your requirement you will take a higher version or lower based on your production setups. Next is the storage. So I need only basic storage. I will go for GP2, and 20 GB is sufficient. Now of course I need enable it. I can enable auto scaling. I will make it as 100 GB. So what will happen is when my storage reaches 20 GB in the RDS, it will automatically scale till 100 GB. Okay, so my instance will not stop working, but I need to put some alerts, right? So we should put some alerts when it reaches this 20 GB, and because when it reaches 100 GB it will stop. So I need to closely monitor these thresholds. Yeah. Next is connectivity. Do you want to connect to an EC2 instance? I don't want it now, but if I want, I can select that as well. What kind of network do you need? I need IPv4. Now my VPC is default. Subnet group is also default, and public access yes. For now I will be accessing it from my laptop, so I will give public access yes. But when we have a setup that is an internal setup, it will be no mostly. Yeah. Now security group, I will choose my existing firewall security group default one. Now availability zone, I can give any preference, either if I want on US East 1A or 1B. For now I will give it as no preference. Click on additional configuration. This is the database port, which is 3306, and then I want password authentication, where I will give passwords here. Now do I need enhanced monitoring? So you can enable enhanced monitoring to see the processes or threads used by the CPU. I mean, for how long you want, every 5 seconds or 60 seconds, that can be defined. For now I will not take it. Next is the additional configuration. Do you want a database name? I will say yeah, I want a database name as test. So this is not mandatory, you can even leave it blank. The next is parameter group. So it is always advisable to create a new parameter group, but I will just leave it for default, and I will create it a little later. So what is a parameter group? Parameter group, like I mentioned, when we create a database, So we have the my.cnf file, right? MySQL.default file. However, in this case, we don't have access to the server. So how do we change those parameters? We will have a parameter group. So the instance will create a parameter group where all the parameters are defined, and I can change the parameters from there, and the changes will apply to the database instance. Okay, so this is the parameter group. Now what is do you want to enable backup? Oh yeah, I can take backup, and I can take it for 1 day for now. Do I have a backup window preference? No, I don't have a preference, or I can take a preference that okay, take it at 12 UTC at for this time. Do I want encryption? Yeah, okay, I will take encryption. The log exports, I can take error log, general log, slow query log, whatever the logs I want, I can take it for CloudWatch. And do I need an auto management minor upgrade? I will click it as no. So in this way, what will happen is whenever a new version will come, Amazon RDS will automatically upgrade it. Yeah. Next is maintenance window. Do you want a maintenance window? Okay, in production I will choose, but for now I will not. And at the end it will show you the total charges that are applied. Okay, so we are pretty much done here. We chose everything, right? Yeah, so we have gone through all these things. Okay, and next I will create database. Now if we see, it will create the database, and if I want I can check my credentials here. I will not click, but if I click here I will see the username and password that I've created for this database. Now I can see that the database is getting created here. It is a T3 micro instance. The status is creating, and this is the VPC multi-asset. Yes or no? It's no. I am not created a multi-asset. Now while it is getting created, I can look at how it looks in the console. I will click here, and so when the database instance is created, how do I access it? I will need this endpoint from here and the port. Okay, and these are the subnets that are available. Then security groups. Do I have a replica? No, I don't have it now. Do I have a proxy? So I don't have a proxy, so we'll discuss about proxy in upcoming lectures. Next is monitoring tab. So we have a monitoring of the instance. So once the instance is created, you can see what is the CPU utilization, what are the number of connections. So you can see, like, all these metrics can be monitored. What is the average? Okay, so like 6 hours, and do you want it every 10 minutes, 15 minutes? So this will give you an idea of how your database, how many connections are in the database for every, say like in every, I want to see for every 2 weeks, last 2 weeks, what were my average connection every 15 minutes. So this kind of data is available with us to monitor in Amazon RDS. What is the storage space? This is really a good thing. I mean, I monitor my spaces on production with this, and I get an alert. So you can actually see like what is the free storage space. Okay, what is the memory, how many is the write IOPS, read IOPS. So you need to take care of the read and write IOPS to see, like, how much is the requirement. Is your CPU, is your IO really sufficient, or are you lagging in it? Then what is the replica lag if you have a replica? What is the binary log usage, reach, throughput, through? So you can see there are a lot of parameters here, right? Recency, read, CPU credit usage, like I said, right? This is a burstable instance. So what is your credit right now? Is it full, or how much is it required? Yeah. And CPU credit balance. Okay, what is your CPU credit balance that is there right now? Because as your balance goes down, you will not be able to burst balance. What is the burst balance? EBS IO balance. Okay, so you have all these things, local storage, and so Amazon keeps on adding a lot of these parameters here. Total IOPS. Yeah. So next is logs and events. So you will see all this CloudWatch alarms here if something comes up, and you will see the events here as well. So when I created the database, you can see the DB instance restarted. Now this is what I did earlier. I created one database earlier for some purpose, and so you can see the logs. Instance restarted, instance created, logs exported, DB backup was configured, DB backup was taken, and next is instance stops, and I deleted an instance. So you can get all these instances here. So now also when the instance will be created, you will see all these logs here, events here. And here you'll see all the MySQL error log and other logs. Yeah. Next is the configuration. Now if somebody asks me, hey, what is your database version, I can go here and check. The version will be here. So this is 8.0.26. What is my instance class? This is the instance class. How many CPUs I have? I have 2 CPUs, 1 GB RAM, 2 I have store encryption enabled, yes. What is the storage type? GP2. Okay. What is the storage limit for now? 20 GB. Okay. Do I have any scaling enabled? Yes, it is enabled. What is the maximum storage threshold? 100. Okay. And this is the parameter group, default MySQL. And these are the logs that are published. Now the next is maintenance and backups. Okay, let's see, is it created? So should not take a lot of time. It's almost, I think, in the final stages. But where we were here actually. So we were in maintenance and backup. So of course, whenever you have an instance, you always want to have a backup enabled. So backup is enabled for 1 day. Okay. So what with the latest restore time, you will get it. Yeah. What are the snapshots? You will get all those snapshots, and you can also restore a snapshots. Yeah. The next is tags. So of course you want to add a tag. Is it a developed server? What is the purpose and all? So you can add all those tags here. But so there are a lot of good features here. I mean, one of the benefit is if you have a snapshot, you can always do a restore. Okay, if somebody says that, hey, I want to check my data for yesterday and all, so you just need to take us this you just need to restore the snapshots. Like in production, you may have database backup for last 30 days, so you'll have all these 30 snapshots, and you can also restore the snapshot, or you can take a manual snapshot. Okay. And the next is pending maintenance. So whenever you are going to upgrade or going to apply a patch, it will be in the pending maintenance, and either you can apply now, or it will be applied at the next maintenance window. So it's a very nice console, and you can find most of the information here. Okay. And you can see that database endpoint and port is also available here. And see, the status is now backing up. If I go back to logs and events, so I can see one more thing now. So this is when I'm creating the instance now. Restarted, DB instance is created, logs got exported, and backup DB instance. So this is also a good audit trail of who has done what actually. So I mean, you can get a lot of information from here, even when you do patching, right? So from here, when you do upgrade or patching, so I will create one more session on database upgrades, where we will see how we are upgrading databases in RDS from one version to another. So you can see all those things here, how the databases are getting upgraded, what is the stage and all. And then you can see these logs as well. See, so you can see what is the error log for now. I can just click on view, and look, I have this logs here. Okay, so it will say that database has started, or if anything is there, you can get it from here. You have this MySQL upgrade log as well here. So in a similar way, you can get whole lot of information from this console. It is very useful as a DBA. You can get whole kind of important information. Yeah. And this is the connectivity, and this is the security group. Okay, let me check the inbound rules. So I have enabled IP to my I've allowed access to my server, access to my laptop actually, sorry. I'll go back to RDS now. So I have this one instance, okay, and that is getting backed up. So you can see now we have this option. Now I can create a read replica as well. So once this database is created, I can create a read replica. Yeah. So it's just about to get created. Now we discuss about the parameters group as well. We can click on the parameter group. So this is the default MySQL 8.0 parameter group. Let's take a look at this. So yeah, so like I mentioned, it has all the default parameters of the database that we define in the that are possible for this version. And if you want to change anything, you can actually change it from here. Yeah. So like we have a bin log format as mixed, and whatever the important parameters that we have in MySQL. Even if you look at buffer, right? So you have this InnoDB buffer pool size and everything is there. If I look at sessions, right? Sessions. So you have all these session related parameters here. Similarly, if you look at all these important things, right? Whatever you have in MySQL, everything is available here. And you can also so like I mentioned, this is a default parameter group. You should not use this. You can, if you want to modify anything, of course you can just click here and do a edit parameter. Yeah, but this is the default parameter group. You should not edit it. Okay, so whatever you do, so how do we make changes to it? We will look at it. Yeah, but the idea is to show you like what are the when you want to expire the logs and flush, and so a whole lot of the parameters are available. So if you have any customized parameters, you can always have them there. Okay, since I've got disconnected, yeah.